Chapter 12. Run! Will takes point with Zan and Myrta in the middle, Zephyr bringing up the rear. The corridor they'd taken to get to the bridge has changed from dimly lit and a little creepy to bright and blinding red and very creepy. Well, this looks like the set of a horror movie, Will says, leaning around a corner before motioning the others to follow. Any thoughts, anyone? What the hell did we do? Angered it. Would be my first guess, Myrta quips. Seems to be your specialty. Will turns and flips Myrta off. Before anyone else can say a word, a bulkhead slams shut, cutting Will and Myrta off from Zan and Zephyr. Will looks at Myrta. Really? I get stuck with you. He bangs on the bulkhead with one hand. Myrta scowls, tapping his wrist comm. Benary, your captain and I are cut off from Zephyr and Zan. Can you tell if other bulkheads have closed? Benny replies. Scanning now, hard to tell without more detail, but... Will interrupts. Benny, my armor has little probe things, 4 of them. They're zipping around mapping the ship as they go. One is back with me, the other 3 are working their way back. Can you uplink to them? Wait one. Yeah, I've got him. Those are neat. Did you know you had those? Myrta chuckles, not politely. Will glares at his companion. Yeah, don't worry about that. Can you use them? Yeah, looks like all 3 are wandering around. The route they took is blocked. I've got control of them now. You should have a prompt on your wristcom to release control to me. Yeah, I see it. Will taps a command on his wristcom. Control is yours. Okay, good. I'm sending all 3 to map as much as I can. I'm gonna work on routing all of you back to the airlock. Zephyr and Zan are on the move now. I'll start patching directions to your wristcoms. Roger that. Thanks, Benny. Will starts moving down the corridor. What now? Zan asks, looking up at Zephyr. Zephyr looks down at the small scientist. We keep moving. She turns and heads back to the last junction they'd passed. Benny, we got cut off from Will and Myrta. Can you guide us back to the Ghost? On it. Already talking to the captain. Did you know his new armor has little autonomous drones? Zephyr stifles a laugh. Yeah, I saw that. Zan looks down the hall ahead of them. Did you hear that? Zephyr immediately focuses on the corridor, aiming her weapon the direction she's looking, scanning the passage. I didn't. What was it? Zan shrugs. Beats me. Sounded like scraping metal. Zephyr looks at her wristcom. Benny? Hold on. I'm sorting through the data from Will's probes. I'll send directions to your wristcom. Roger that. She glances down at her forearm. As the screen flashes directions, she motions to Zan. Okay, let's go. But that's where I heard the noise, Zan says, following Zephyr down the corridor. Drin! Benny spins in his chair to face a different monitor. The map that Will's probes have created is updating in real time as they try to find their way back to Will's armor. On another screen, the exterior view of the derelict shows whole sections of it lighting up. Another shows power readings from around the derelict. Grebnak, this went sideways. Computer, I need your help. Of course, Benary. What can I do for you? This time it's a feminine voice that Will had said was better than the last 3 Benny had tried. I need you to keep your scanners on the teams. Feed me any changes to the routes between them and the airlock. Of course, Benny. Anything for you. Computer, disable personality module. Acknowledged. The old familiar voice of the Ghost replies. Benny sighs, spinning to face another display. Maybe this ship doesn't need any more personality. Somewhere on a giant, scary ship. Maxim's wristcom vibrates, and he glances down at it before taking the next left. Just ahead, there's a ramp heading up to the level above. Come on. Jorlu is just behind him, and Prothea is behind her, with Gabe bringing up the rear. Gabe is holding 2 powerful rifles, one in each hand. Jorlu slows. Did you hear that? Maxim looks at the Burzad scientist and shakes his head. One eyebrow raised, she indicates her pointed ears. Max looks at Gabe, who points to his own lack of ears. Maxim shakes his head and touches his comm. Benny, have you detected anything? Anything like? Maxim frowns. If I knew, I'd have asked you more specifically. Fine, fine, fine. I don't see anything. Well, anything outside the bulkheads closing and the ship powering up. Oh, wait. I do see something. Whoa! Lots of somethings. What are you? Maxim, down. Gabe's voice, much louder than usual, echoes through the corridor. Training kicks in. Max doesn't ask. He just follows the order. A pulse rifle blast roars over his head as he ducks, slamming right into a mechanical, squid-like thing. It's matte black, an oblong body with 5 glowing red sensors on the front, and an array of metal tentacles emerging from the back of the device. Oh, Shazbot! Jorlu shouts, raising her long arms. Prathia grabs her lanky companion, pulling her to the ground. Maxim pushes the mechanical thing aside and fires at a half-dozen more of the things behind it. What are those things? Gabe is still standing in the middle of the corridor, calmly firing his 2 pulse rifles, set to automatic down the corridor, at the mechanical squids. I do not know. The last of the attackers falls to the deck as he speaks, tentacles twitching. I believe we should increase our pace and hurry to the airlock. Agreed, Max says, standing and helping Prathia and Jorlu up. Let's go. All 4 set off in the same direction they had been heading in before the attack. Heads up, Max and his team just encountered some kind of mechanical somethings. Metal, lots of tentacles, glowing red eyes. Benny announces over the comms. Yeah, Will shouts over blaster fire. We're familiar with the mechanical calamari, thanks. He stands up from behind one of the mechanicals and fires off 2 shots into another oncoming squid thing. It drops to the ground, glowing sensors fading to black, 1 tentacle twitching. Will looks at his wrist comm. It's showing the corridor clear of hostiles. He motions to Murta. Huey shows all clear. Let's go. They take off at a jog, following the small floating drone down the corridor. Murta touches his own wrist comm. Bennery, do you know what these things are? How many of them there are? Can you track them? Why didn't you warn us about them? Over the comms line, Benny tuts. Beats me, no clue, and I can only detect them when they're bunched up. Their power signatures are masked by the ship until a few of them get together. I didn't know they were there, and didn't know what the readings were until they attacked. Murta scowls. Can you at least guide us away from the bunches? I'll see what I can do. They seem to bunch up, then disperse into groups too small to track, Benny says. Well, do what you can, Will says, as they round a corner. Huey is 100 meters ahead of them, at a 4-way junction. Zephyr turns another corner. Clear. Zan pops out from behind the corner and follows her. They've been moving through the ship alone for a while, Zephyr taking point, Zan armed with one of Zephyr's spare pistols. Do you think we'll run into any of those? What did Will call them? Mechanical calamari? Before we reach the airlock? I don't know. No offense, but I don't like our odds. Zephyr glances down at the meter-tall scientist. Zan holds the pulse pistol out and examines it. None taken. Suddenly, Zephyr stops. Well, I guess I did tempt fate on this one. Before Zan can ask what she means by that, 3 large mechanical squid-like things turn a corner. Their red glowing sensors all turn to face the 2 women, and without a second's pause, they lunge at the 2 intruders. Shazbot, Zan shouts, pulling the trigger on her borrowed pistol, sending shots all over the place, most of which fail to hit their targets. Zephyr drops to one knee, leveling her rifle. The first squid-like mechanism falls to the deck, 3 smoking holes blown through its main sensor array. 2 of Zan's shots find their mark, distracting one of the attackers long enough for Zephyr to finish it off. The third closes the distance and tackles Zephyr. Zephyr! Zan shouts as one of the tentacles swipes at her, sending her crashing into the wall, the pulse rifle flying from her hand. She slides through the ground, dazed. Zephyr is struggling with a tentacle around her throat, squeezing her air supply when a pulse pistol goes off. The mechanoid she's fighting shudders, and a tentacle slams into her midsection, knocking the wind out of her. Ah-ya! Zan is a small, furry blur on top of the squid thing. She crawls across it, firing into the machine, then rolls away from a lashing tentacle to climb in front of the glowing sensor array, firing directly into it. The machine shudders again and thrashes another tentacle toward the small and vicious scientist, missing as she crawls around the side of the device, firing 2 more times. The tentacle around Zephyr's neck abruptly goes slack, and she wiggles out from under the motionless squid thing. "Nice shooting," she says, "and, scampering. And was that biting? You know there's a face mask." Zan drops down off the machine and dusts her suit off. Then she looks up at Zephyr. "No one needs to know about this." Without another word, she turns and continues down the corridor. Mustard's last stand. "You should be approaching a large chamber with several corridors connecting to it," Benny says rapidly, over Maxim's wristcom. "Wait there." Maxim, Jorlu, and Prathia race into the chamber and skid to a halt. There are 6 entries to other corridors. 2 have hatches closed down over them. From the one opposite, Maxim, Will, and Myrta emerge panting. Will drops gasping to the floor, clutching his knees, while Myrta seems only slightly winded. "Where's Zephyr?" Maxim asks, rushing to Will's side. "We got separated," Will starts. "We?" Myrta puts a hand on Maxim's arm, glancing to Will. "We got separated. Zephyr and Zan are on their own. I believe Ben-Ari is guiding them here as well." He glances down at his wristcom. "Don't worry, Big Papa. I've got them covered," Benny says. "They're on their way." Will looks up from his doubled-over position. "That's not how that expression... Actually, that's not too far off," he wheezes. He looks at Maxim, who just shakes his head. "Gotta keep Benny out of my library." From a corridor to Will's right, the sound of weapons fire suddenly erupts. Zephyr and Zan burst out of the entrance, Zephyr still firing back down the corridor, the barrel of her pulse rifle glowing. "Maxim!" she shouts. Without missing a beat, the ex-peacekeeper springs into action. He dashes across the room, dropping to one knee and raising his own pulse rifle in a single movement. A second later, he's firing. Zan runs over to Jorlu. "This might have been more excitement than I was hoping for," the small scientist says, grasping her much taller friend's thin hands. Jorlu nods in agreement. Will is about to join Maxim and Zephyr when his suit emits an alarm he's not familiar with, and one of the mechanical squids collides with him. "Okay, that is a proximity warning, I guess," he thinks, as he crashes to the ground under an angry metal squid. Myrta turns and begins firing at the second mechanical monster, taking care to not hit Will, who is firing his pulse pistol into the thing from under it. When the device's sensor fades to black and it goes limp, Will shoves it off. He looks at Myrta. "Thanks for not shooting me." Myrta nods, then turns his attention to the corridor and immediately starts firing again. "More incoming!" Will spins and ducks, taking cover behind the deactivated mechanical monster and firing over the makeshift barrier. He lifts his wristcom. "Benny, we need to get the hell off this ship fast." Benny sounds frantic. "I see them. I'm working on it. That bulkhead at your back is the corridor to the airlock. It closed when the rest did. I'm trying to hack it, but the ship is fighting back." A tentacle flashes by inches over Will's head before its owner is riddled with holes from Myrta's weapon. "Hurry, please." "What do you think I'm doing?" the little hacker growls. Zephyr and Maxim are alternating fire, letting their weapons cool down in between. The mechanical squids are gaining ground. On the other side of the junction, Myrta and Will are faring only slightly better. Gabe has picked up a spare pulse pistol and is standing near the center of the space so that he can fire down both corridors over the others' heads. "I hear them," Jorlu shouts, pointing down a third corridor. "Damn it," Will curses. He taps Myrta's shoulder, who nods. "Benny?" "Working on it." "We're going to be dead soon. Can you at least close the bulkhead to the corridor at my 4 o'clock? "Let me see." The bulkhead slams shut just as a half-dozen set of glowing red eyes become visible. Bulkheads slam closed on the other 2 corridors, defeating the crew. "Easier to close them than open them," the hacker says, sounding quite proud of himself. Maxim and Zephyr lower their weapons. Jorlu walks to one of the recently closed bulkheads, reaching out and resting her long-fingered hand on the metal. "That was..." Something on the other side bangs against the door, and she jumps back. "Oh my!" Maxim looks at the door. "Not only will that not hold long," he says, "but we're also still trapped." Interrupt. Defensive drones unsuccessful at eradicating infection. Analyzing strategies. Foreign organisms currently contained in corridor junction 03045. Interrupt. Intrusion detected. Foreign vessel at airlock Omega 11 is accessing systems. Counter. Attempt unsuccessful. Dispatching external drones. Interrupt. Foreign entity has penetrated firewall X14. Firewall X13 holding. Intrusion halted. The past. It takes nearly an hour to tell the whole story, or at least the parts Will is comfortable sharing. When he's done, he lets out a long breath and reaches for his coffee. Empty. James stares at his old friend blankly, slowly petting his dog for what feels to Will like an age. So, you've been in space? Yes. For nearly 4 years. That long, geez. Time flies when you're nearly dying alone in space, surrounded by aliens of all shapes and sizes. Will is the only one chuckling at the joke. And you never thought, in all that time, to let anyone know you were alive. Will frowns. I mean, it's not like I had a mobile phone to call you on, or that it would reach here. Space comms don't talk to GSM networks. They nearly killed the FTL program. That launch you just saw was only the second since you left. They didn't want to ask any more astronauts. Buddy, I thought I'd lost one of my best friends. I had to console your sister, man. James is getting more and more agitated. His dog, Aldrin, is starting to growl. Will glances worried to the small French bulldog, then pulls the sleeve of his shirt up to glance at his wristcom. The download finished 20 minutes ago. He holds his arm up so James can see the high-tech device. Come on, let's grab a bite and go to the park. Is Civic Center Park still a bit sketchy? Huh? Yeah, it can be. But it's food truck day, so shouldn't be bad. James has a blank look in his eyes. I'm gonna need to work on my delivery if I'm gonna tell anyone else, Will thinks. James isn't looking so good. It's a short walk from the coffee shop to Civic Center Park, sandwiched between the state capitol and the city, and county buildings. The Capitol's dome, once gold, but now polished durasteel, shines in the midday sun. The gold had been replaced with the space-aged alloy when the launch center in eastern Colorado opened, beginning the new space age for the United States and the renaissance for the Colorado space industry. Will pays for 2 hamburgers from one of the trucks, and the 2 men find a bench away from most of the lunchtime crowd. After swallowing a bite of his burger, Will says, "Look, man, I'm the first to admit my story is nutty. But how else would you explain it? You know that pod couldn't keep me alive this long. You also know that pod couldn't land. It was only designated to dock at the space station, so what other explanation is there?" To emphasize his point, he rolls his sleeve up, again revealing the wristcom that takes up most of his forearm. He adds, "Plus, if I came back, they'd have to rename all the schools they named after me and take down the statues and stuff." He pauses and looks around the park. "Those are things, right?" Yeah. I don't know that there are any schools named after you. I mean, maybe in Kansas or something. But yeah, that wouldn't be a real big challenge. About statues, yeah, don't look over there." He points. Will looks. "No way." There, in the middle of a patch of flowers, is an 8-foot statue of Will, in his spacesuit, helmet under one arm and the other arm raised, pointing up into the sky. "Dude, I look awesome," he shouts. James moves his hands in a shushing motion. "Calm down. So then, what are you doing back here? Why the secrecy?" James looks him in the eye. "How long have you been back?" "I actually got back last night. Us bumping into each other is 100% random. I did look you up, though, and was thinking of stopping by your place tonight before I leave." "Wait, leaving? You said you just got here." James sets his burger down in his lap. "Yeah, I can't stay. You know that. For one thing, you know, I'm dead and all that, at least legally. Can you imagine the kittens NASA would have if I just walked in the front door?" He laughed at the image. "I'd never smell fresh air again. Plus, they'd dismantle the ghost and do who knows what with the technology." "Man, this is too much." James shakes his head. He breaks some of his burger off and hands it to Aldrin. "So, why are you back then?" "Porn," Will says, keeping a straight face while James' eyes bug out of his skull. Will almost drops the rest of his burger when he finally gives in to the overwhelming urge to laugh. God, I wish I had a camera. Wait, maybe my wristcom has one. Never mind, the moment's passed. Seriously, though, I've been having a rough time out there being all alone. I didn't have any music or movies or TV shows. Or porn, James offers. Will nods. Look, guy has needs. He waves a hand dismissively. You know, part of the oh crap kit should be an iPod with as much media on it as will fit. He smiles. Aliens have Thunderbolt, you know. He takes a bite of his burger but keeps talking. Anyway, yeah, it's lonely out there. Having some stuff from home will help, I hope. He raises his hand. Oh yeah, and bacon. I need to stock up on bacon. He grumbles and adds, and trinkets. I gotta load up on trinkets. He frowns as he says it. Can I see your ship? James asks. No, Will says, without missing a beat. He looks around them, then touches a control on his wristcom. A holographic image of the ghost appears, floating between them. Best I can give you, he smiles. Kinda ugly, James says, leaning in to look at the image. Will tuts. Don't make me knock you out. James doesn't even take his eyes from the slowly rotating hologram. As if.